Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast Super One. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 170 of Podcast Super One, youtube.com/Super One Studios, the best place to consume all the content. And if you didn't know, listeners, and let's be honest, you probably didn't, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year. Kapow. Daniel.
Hey.
It's episode 170, and we are talking Marvel Studios' Secret Invasion. We talked about the first 3 episodes already. It's a limited series of 6 episodes, and so we'll be talking the whole series overview, its place in the MCU, and all the ups and downs that come with it.
Yes.
So, give me your general take of the series overall. And particularly the way it kind of lands for you and for the ending.
Yeah, I mean, disappointing is like the big word that just comes to mind. Not reaching its potential, not even getting close, and
not even reaching.
Maybe not even reaching, right? But yeah, it was a rough watch. I think. We going into it obviously have a lot of expectations just from the tone, the story. It's an interesting idea. We didn't, there's so many ways that they could make this story cool and even retroactively make past things cooler, if they do the right things in the right way. And they just didn't do any of those things. They ended up telling a really, really underwhelming Nick Fury story that was not satisfying whatsoever, and did not. It made me believe less in Nick Fury than it made me believe in more of him, and so yeah, I mean, just disappointing, lackluster. Those are the kind of the words that come to mind when I think about this show.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much I can add there other than let's kind of get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah,
I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. Let's just kind of start off with a few things. One, this show really does. If the idea is it's Nick Fury's vehicle, and it's supposed to be somewhat demystifying him, and then also remystifying him, so to speak. Like what you're kind of seeing, you're seeing the man behind the shadows, and then the show is. Yeah, it feels like it's trying to put him back in a position before he got dusted in Endgame. And I think you got a few issues.
I don't know. I get. I didn't feel like that at the end. I did not feel like Nick Fury's back.
No, I said the show is trying to say this.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like if you could follow anything, it would be like Nick Fury got dusted. He felt like he lost his touch. He goes into hiding, and he comes back, and the show is him trying to, Stella's got to get a groove back, so to speak. And so, but here's a few things. One, we don't really ever see, you kind of see a few things in the first few episodes where he's, Colby Smulders gets killed, which is Maria Hill, which is a travesty because she could have easily replaced Nick Fury as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's an amazing actress, and also I just have a huge crush on her, always have. And I think, A, there's a problem, but then B, you don't really see Nick Fury not being not Nick Fury, you know what I'm saying? Like not in a way that matters to the universe.
Right.
You see, you know what I'm saying? I think that's where it kind of matters. It's like it'd be like Iron Man. I don't know, like it's just like he's like, oh, I'm not Iron Man anymore, but then like if it doesn't, you don't see how it reacts to the universe. And again, this is kind of a problem we've been dealing with is like when you have these kind of ideas and stories, if you can do a good character study, it's one thing. But a lot of this stuff hinges on how the universe reacts to what characters are doing within it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's problem. That's problem one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it just feels, and that's the problem with basically all of these Marvel shows. They've just felt like isolated. They feel like they don't actually have an impact on the universe we were kind of following, I guess, you know, up until Endgame.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And even more so that, I don't know if, I mean, what was this, like a $200 million budget? Is that something ridiculous? Like
which is like problem 7, but we'll get there. But yeah,
but like,
it's
I mean,
wild.
I get you got an Academy Award winner, you know, Olivia Colman. You got Academy Award winner Samuel L. Jackson. I'm guessing he's won an Academy Award. I actually don't know that.
I think he has an honorary Academy Award, but I could be wrong.
You got Daenerys, you know,
surely he has one. Let's
and
Emmy Award winning, right? I assume she's Emmy Award winning. I don't know.
I actually don't know if she's won one, but she's been nominated for a ton, and she has gotten like the Critics' Choice Awards. I know. Yeah, I mean, I get that you've got to pay all those people a lot of money, right, to want to be in this, sure. But at the same time, like, this world felt so small. Every time we were in any scenario, it just felt like the bare bones extras in the background, the bare bones production design. Oh, the president's in this small, tiny ass hospital, and there's 2 guards. 2. You know, it's just
there's like 5 at the end though. It's like 5 at the end.
You know, it's just like this. None of this feels real. None. I can't, like, even at just a basic like production design and like what they're presenting as the real world. I can't believe in it. It just doesn't look real. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like what Marvel movies used to feel like, where it was like, it felt like a movie. You get 100 extras in a background for one scene, and it makes it feel a lot different than having 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels. It feels like a continuation of what Marvel has felt like it's been doing since maybe WandaVision, but like, or after WandaVision, but just, it feels every time it feels like they can cut a corner, it feels like they do.
Yeah.
You know, and it just gives this sense of cheapness to not only the show itself, but that kind of translates to the universe. And it's like, you can put this out and I'm like, yeah, this show wasn't great. It wasn't for me. But the bigger problem is it makes me that much less interested in what's next. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like,
well, the thing that scares me always with these kind of things. I was never excited about Echo, but I just, every day we get closer. I reminded myself it existed the other day when we were talking. I forgot.
Right.
But then when it gets closer and closer, I'm like, I mean, like, good thing is one day I can binge the whole thing maybe, or a couple of days I can be done with it. But I don't know what it's going to give me that I needed, but maybe more Daredevil, hopefully maybe more Wilson Fisk. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think you're right. I think the thing that scares me with all these kind of things is because this is like a big part of my life. Like, you know, I enjoy watching these kind of things, talking about them, anticipating them. Like that was my thing before it was a thing, you know. That was like, that's been one of my favorite things of all time. And when you get mediocre content and then a lot of that, it starts diluting brands, and it feels like, I mean, I always go in the comment section and like different places, just kind of get a feeling, you know, and it's turned on Marvel a little bit, you know. I say a little bit, a lot. A lot of fatigue is setting in, and and the box office this year is weird in general, so I'm not sure it's super easy to quantify, at least on the DC side and some other things. It's a weird year. I've been following it, but
yeah, I mean,
DC is also just in the shambles as well, you know.
Yeah, but I guess the one thing with DC is it feels like there's hope on the horizon, because they've made a change. We just haven't seen the effects of it yet, almost, right? And so there is at least hope, because we feel like better things are coming for the DC, and we just haven't got to see them yet, because what we're seeing is just what's been in the pipeline for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the fear there is the investors. I just feel like there's this disconnect. Even then, it's like, oh, these DC properties are failing, even though James Gunn doesn't really have anything to do with them yet.
Sure.
And it's like they could be making changes that forces his hand before he even gets to do the thing, because, you know what I'm saying, like, I feel like
James Gunn would quit at some point in that kind of environment. He does not feel like the kind of creative that would be okay with having that little control. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you're saying is like, I mean, anecdotally, Marvel isn't cool anymore. Just kind of straight up.
Daniel.
I mean, it is just in terms of like every post you see about Marvel, unless they're on one of these like hardcore fan forums that just, they can't see anything wrong with anything Marvel does. it is. The comments are, "I'm bored. I don't care." The cool comment, and again, part of this is just like, groupthink, and once it feels like the majority of people don't like it, there's going to be a lot more people that jump on that bandwagon because they don't want to feel like an outsider. Yeah. And so I think
we don't qualify as that, though, Daniel, because we have our own original thoughts and come at it from a particular viewpoint.
We're not defending. We're not wearing rose-colored glasses. I wish I could find some though. Sometimes,
I wear them. Mine are shaded a little red sometimes,
but it's telling when they can't even help these kinds of things, right? That rose. Yeah. So it's a, and Marvel knows it. I mean, Bob Iger has spoken about it recently. Yeah. I mean, of course, Kevin Feige looking at the 13% Rotten Tomato score of the final episode of this show he's got to be frustrated. I hope he is.
He has to know, though.
There's no way he can't. I mean, like, the Marvel fever is like the social fever for that content isn't here right now. Doesn't mean they can't get it back. They can if they just tell good stories with good characters and focus their resources. But to an extent, they've lost a lot of what they had when Endgame came out.
Well, I think a big thing too is, again, these shows are $200 million, and I think a lot of these we're still like getting the pandemic leftovers in terms of production.
Sure, and maybe that,
and so. I'm just saying, like, there's also a point where, they're reporting as 200 million. It could be more. It could be a little less.
Right.
But there was also, Bob, what's his name? Bob Chapek. There could have been conversations where it's like, guys, stop tinkering. Like, if they tinker forever, right? It could have been like, you spent this much money on it. It's a TV show for 6 weeks. Like, stop spending. $200 million for a 6-week TV show. That's crazy.
Wild. And
that is
like
crazy.
Not even hour-long episodes.
You could have easily. Well, we get to like the finale and some of the action stuff. You could have made it a pure spy thriller.
Yes.
Had the critical rave, had no action in it, and made like a tense, still 6th episode if you really wanted to, and then toned it down and and went practical in terms of it's people talking and people being spies. Right. You can do that show, but let's go to problem number 2. And I don't have a list in front of me. They're coming to me, but Ben Middleton as Talos.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, you and me talking about how he's one of the best actors working, and it's always a treat seeing him, and they kill him off halfway through, and not a cool way. And the big thing is they kill him off to shoehorn in Gaia, not even shoehorn in, but they bring her in and she's like replacing him in a way, right? Yeah. Which is fine. The idea is fine.
Sure.
But there's absolutely, I do not have any type of I don't feel like they had a good way of handling the relationship in terms of, I don't feel it. I don't feel like, oh man, she's really upset about her dad, even though there's obviously lines of dialogue at the end, but I don't know, it feels empty, and it feels like we lost an amazing actor in the MCU for no reason other than shock value.
Can you explain something to me? How did she resurrect herself? I do not understand it. Did not understand that.
The only thing, so she gets shot, right?
Yes.
Before she goes out there and gets shot, she walks into that chamber that's given them powers.
Oh, so that was like that was a flashback. I didn't pick that up at all. That was a flashback.
Yeah. It was, everyone was like, oh my God, they killed her off. And then it has like half the internet. The other half is like, you're so stupid if you think they're going to Amelia Clark, which also I was kind of like, I don't know. It's like, I'm pretty sure she's coming back, but like, it wouldn't surprise me also if they did kill her off. But just based on how the show was going. But Maria Hill died in episode 1. We lost Talos. Don't know when that happened. I think probably episode 4 or so.
Yeah.
And then, the fake out with her. And then
that was episode 3. I think the fake out
and,
was right before that. Yeah.
And we can follow that conclusion real quick. So, there's one thing, I knew whenever Nick Fury walks into Chernobyl, which it took me a minute to remember they were in Chernobyl. I was like, why is he coughing?
I was wondering, was it specifically Chernobyl they were in, or was it just
pretty sure?
Power plant? Yeah. It would make more sense.
It's in Russia because they're fixing to bomb Russia, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, he's in Chernobyl. That's why he's been coughing. And I was like,
right.
I bet money this is probably a scroll because then he's gonna be saving the president. So it's probably Amelia Clark and whatever, blah blah blah. And it was, but that's a fine twist. But one of the problems is Nick Fury. You're getting the information from Nick Fury, like his emotional part of his connection with Gravik, but it's not. It's not Nick Fury. It's
Yeah,
Gaia. It's Gaia pretend to be Nick Fury, so she's saying things that she has probably no idea that Nick actually how Nick feels.
Unless he just talked her, gave her a script. But
yeah, he's like, hey, whenever he starts talking, like this is what I did, and like but that's the ridiculousness of it, right? And so it makes all that kind of feel. It's so wasted potential. It's so wasted, and then you have to have and let's just keep following this. Then you have to have a superpowered fight, right?
I guess that's a requirement. Yeah.
I guess so. It's a requirement, which, hey, I'm all for them if they're done correctly. I love that kind of shit. It's it's why I come to the party to begin with, but I don't always need it, but okay. Now what? She's the most powerful character ever. She's got, if you look at the DNA, she has Thanos' DNA.
I saw that.
Captain Marvel.
That guy was like half purple at one point, the Gravik.
Well, yeah, I mean, just in the list that was shown of like, here's all the things, but why did she? So Nick Fury gives her the vial to give to Gravik, and then the idea is that she needs to get the powers, but what a dumb fucking play. It could have went wrong in any way.
Yeah,
he could have killed her, and then he could have had the powers of every powerful character in the universe.
Right,
and it wouldn't have mattered if Nick Fury is saving.
That she was coughing and like fell over inside the big portal machine that gives them power. You know what I mean? It's like, why wouldn't he just be like, you know what, get over, kick him over here, and now I'll use the machine. Like, there was just like little things like that you're just like, well, of course now. Like at that point, I was still thinking it was maybe Nick Fury. I hadn't really picked up on the scroll thing yet, but I was like, so they're just going to give Nick Fury powers too? Well, like, wouldn't that just give him powers too? Or unless in theory it was only supposed to work on scrolls, but they didn't. To me, they didn't signpost that enough that I was thinking like,
not at all.
I was like, well, Nick Fury's just gonna have powers, and
I did too. Online, people were saying like, it only works for scrolls, and I was like, well, I don't think they ever explained that. But
no, I mean, if they did,
for a second, I thought he would get powers.
And
it'd be like a moment where he's like, I have powers now, but they're gonna they only last so long or something. It's like a Hail Mary sort of situation,
right?
So like which I was like, that actually is not a bad idea. It's a Hail Mary, right? Where you use it all up for a second, and it's this guy who's never had powers before, but I still think they might have diluted his character because what's cool about him is that he doesn't have powers and he's winning based on his mind and in the shadows. So anyway, what a stupid
it's just like when you look
idea.
At like the show, like he's not the one that made it all come together. Olivia Colman is. Olivia Colman is in the show what Nick Fury used to be, right? Yep. Like she is, and through the end of the show is way cooler than anybody else on screen. And that's just like, listen, Olivia Colman's an incredible actress, right? Academy Award winning actress. And she nails the role. This like wonderful, like posh, polite British woman that's actually like a cold-blooded killer. It's great. She nails it. Like, I just want to show with her now almost, you know what I mean? And like, but like she's the reason the plan all came together at the end. I mean, Nick Fury told her that Rhodey was a scroll, but other than that, it's like all her legwork. You know what I mean? Like she does, like Nick Fury's just kind of flying by the seat of his pants till the end, and he decides to do the harvest thing, which we find out was a bait and switch with her. And that's like the only time I feel like Nick Fury outsmarted someone. You know what I mean? And like where Nick Fury did Nick Fury things and like thought 7 steps ahead and no one was prepared because he's Nick Fury. It's like, I don't know. It was just weak as shit. And then like alongside just showing a weak ass Nick Fury, you've got Olivia Colman showing what I feel like we should be feeling and seeing from Nick Fury. Yeah. And it's just a weird choice. Like I like her character, but it's so weird to have her upstage Nick Fury the whole show. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. Like it's just strange. It's interesting. Again, she's one of the better parts of the show. So to an extent, I'm not complaining because the more she was on screen, usually the better. But at the same time, this is Nick Fury's show. Yeah. Oh, I get it. Yeah. Oh, I know. And then, just kind of backing up, it's like
he's he's going to his own grave site. I like that he has multiple grave sites across the world, which is cool.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's like getting the patch and stuff. I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know what I don't know the big change that all of a sudden you're back all of a sudden. Like, I don't feel like I felt like that way. I'm like, I don't know what happened. He doesn't really grieve over Talos, which apparently has been his friend for 30 years that has helped him shape the world in a lot of ways.
No,
he doesn't do that. They have Gaia and then Nick Fury's wife, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing. That's the only thing you could say is like he has that emotional scene with his ex-wife or wife or whatever where they don't shoot each other, which is also just dumb. I don't get it. Like, okay, well, let's write this scene where they're both going to shoot each other, but they're going to both intentionally miss because they're going to let the other one kill each other, but they both. I think that's
the thing. It's like
it's stupid,
I love you too much to kill you, and then they end up both love each. They both love each other too much to kill each other.
We both love you enough not to like point a gun at you, but at the last second, we're both going to decide. Actually, I'll just point it a little bit over. It's just to me
that one doesn't bother me too much.
It's just and I guess that moment was supposed to be changing him. Is like they realize they both still love each other, or like she betrays the scrolls for him, and that I guess makes an impact that changes him.
I just don't understand what her point in the show is, because I know she keeps bringing up in different ways, like, do you love this face or do you love me as a scroll? And at the end, it's like at the end of the show again, where they're like fixing to kiss and he's fixing to go back into the ship, all these things. Do you love me as a scroll or do you love this face or this face? And it's like, I get the sentiment behind that, but I don't know why Nick Fury wants to be with you to begin with.
I think it feels like one of those decisions that sounds interesting on the surface, right? Oh, we'll have Nick Fury married to a scroll. So this is much more personal. This is a very personal, situation for him.
Yeah.
But they didn't do enough there to make it worth it that I agree. She felt, I get what they were trying to do, but it never, especially emotionally, I never was like, it never did what it was. Like in every scene, I knew what it was trying to do and it never accomplished it. You know what I'm saying? Like I never felt the emotions that they wanted. Yeah, she's one of the better ones. But like their scenes were so weirdly written and just like talking around things constantly. And like, I get that's like Nick Fury's thing, but like it never connected to me where I'm like, I'm rooting for them or I'm concerned about the outcome of this relationship. No, never cared.
No, never.
And I think it's the writing fault, not the actor's fault.
Absolutely. I think she did a great job. One of the better parts of the show action wise was when her and Gaia did their little their fight scene. That was like when they're shooting out the invaders from the house. That was one of the best parts of the thing, again, which is super weird. But it's like they're coming for me and it's like this is my house. It was the best action that the show had, probably maybe outside of the presidential like assassination attempt. There was some decently looking exploding cars at least. Yeah, maybe the explosion looked good, but like in terms of execution and like they're just sitting there, they're peeking over cars and shooting
you're right.
each
That part
other.
was dumb. But I guess just the initial rockets and stuff was like, okay,
and then
at least the budget felt
like
appropriate. Like it's like, oh, this actually kind of looks like what I would expect a movie to look like if this scene
maybe. Do you remember the moment in that scene where Nick Fury has the rocket launcher and
the tiny little one, the little bitty one?
Yeah, and I get it. He's reacting to like something shooting on the thing, but he does it. It's like that's it. That was Samuel Jackson. It wasn't the recoil of the rocket launcher.
Yeah. I agree.
But at the very end, whenever he's leaving and she's like, well, I come to give you a kiss goodbye and stuff. Yeah. And then he's like, oh yeah, you know what? He's like, you're a great diplomat. You're the best diplomat I know. You should come with me and like broker this. And it's like, what? Like,
is she a good diplomat? Was that her job? Did they say that?
I don't know.
We just missed
I don't remember. See, that's the thing. Maybe I missed something, but he's like, you're the best diplomat I know. And he's like, you can do that. I'm like, was she? I don't remember ever her talking about being a diplomat for the Skrulls. And then it's like, also it's like, well, if she's so amazing, then why didn't you ask her when you left instead of just like, I'm going to leave. And then I'm going to say anything and hope that you follow me. It's like, I don't understand. I don't understand, Daniel.
It's just weak.
It's so
writing.
weak,
It's just
man.
weak character development. It's on the surface. They're doing everything you're supposed to do, but at any point, they're never reaching the potential of what their pursuits are. And I think you're right. That action scene when they attacked them in the house was better, but at the same time, it was hard for me not to notice every time they switched to stunt actor. Like every time it wasn't them, it was stunt actors.
Sure.
It felt obvious to me. Every time,
Sure.
the action was okay. The editing felt like it was covering up things. Like sometimes the way it edited, it was like edited where it was just like, that's not a great shot. I would like, in theory, you would never want to cut from here to here, but it's one of those, like, it feels like a necessary cut. They're trying to cover the action or whatever they were doing. But yeah, I mean, it has a feeling of cheapness. Like it in a way that reminds me, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, but it reminds me of like public television or like CW superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's just, there's only so much effort they're actually putting into it, and that's like for CW, that's their thing. They're making really low budget shows for people, and there's a fan base for that, right?
It's not a slight, because I think those people with enough time and resources can make something that's amazing. But that's the trade-off you have sometimes. When you have less time and less money, you make concessions, and when you have $200 million. You shouldn't have to make those kind of concessions. No. That's the problem. CW gets a pass because it's like that's just you got a week to shoot stuff and different directors and writers.
You're right.
It's
like they put like 20, 30 episodes per season or something like that.
Yeah,
right? In those shows,
and that's okay. You know.
Yes. I think too. Like, just to speak back to Secret Invasion and just issues, the Skrulls plot, like their plan, is so dumb. Like,
it's so stupid.
Again, it's turning what could be a cool spy thriller. Which, like, the perfect plot is that they have infiltrated some of it, but they're trying to replace the president. And it's like they're not trying to do it big and loud and trying to start a fucking war. They're just trying to take over everything and just put their people in every seat of power in the world. You know what I mean? Like, and then having to figure out how they're doing it or who's actually a Skrull, and like that being the climax of like, will they or won't they succeed in replacing the president? And maybe you even leave the show a little ambiguous, where it's like an Inception, an Inception thing where like you spin the quarter and you cut right before it looks like it's about to, you think they saved it, but then there's one little thing that the president, like, wait, is he a Skrull? Like, that's the kind of intrigue and climax that I was looking for in this show, something that is interpersonal.
An amazing location for what you're trying to describe would have been NATO.
Sure.
When you have every single political leader in the same room.
Yes, exactly.
And
that's like their final.
You have Nick Fury come out of the shadows to reveal who's at least some of them who's the Skrulls.
And the climax could be like this thing where like no one publicly even knows it happens. Right. Like it's this thing of like,
it's a press conference at NATO or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like this thing of like, if they succeed, no one will know. And if they don't, no one will know. And that's the danger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Better. You're right.
Like that's so like just espionage and more like what Nick Fury would be doing, right? It doesn't, like, I hate that an espionage show, like part of me is like, are they just treating this like Star Wars, where like, if it's Star Wars, it has to have a lightsaber in it, if it's Marvel, have to have a super powered battle at the end, and I just think,
well, that's what it feels like. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it does. It just feels like, well, the Skrulls have to, we have to have the superhero battle at the end, so we need to make the Skrulls plot lead to that rather than making a cool espionage spy thriller, which is what they build it as, which is what they pitched to us, like as audience members with the teasers and trailers. Yeah.
I remember the trailer and I was like, oh man, we're getting more Winter Soldier, baby. Which again, Winter Soldier does end with like a world threatening
battle.
We're gonna eliminate X amount of people in the world because they're, potential threats.
Right.
But it's also Captain America.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a thriller.
He's a superhero.
He's a superhero, so he's got to have super stakes.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
At some point, he needs to fight someone. He needs to fight, Winter Soldier. He needs someone that is at his level, physically and empowered. And it's like, Nick didn't have that. Like, Gravik was just like a mad kid that wanted to break shit and throw a fit. And then you have Nick Fury, who's, in theory,
it would have been a good twist. You know what you could have done? That would have, even though it would have hurt me a little bit, but it would hurt me in a good way.
Yeah.
You could have had Talos been the bad guy.
That
like-
would have been way more interesting.
Can you
Way
imagine
more
like
interesting?
because you get him and Captain Marvel and you think he's a bad guy then and he ends up being a good guy, but then you have 30
Yeah.
years of like he set it up. He's like, I've been doing your dirty work for 30 years and like you've done nothing for us.
Yeah, those were great conversations. They went nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere.
You know, it's like those are great conversations that like you just left it there. You know what I mean?
What's,
like you
what's
just
the what's the thing where it's like, I mean, I guess he's like, I'm gonna go broke. Oh yeah. At the end, he's talking to his wife, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, the Kree have like signed a peace treaty for the Skrulls, and like they can come back to their planet." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like the Kree is just, oh that's
and you
convenient."
just threw that in there at the end rather than that being like a part of the plot and like some side character is on that
Jesus.
mission to it is. It's just
Yeah. By the way,
sloppy.
it all worked
It's just
out. It all
sloppy
worked out 30
storytelling.
years later.
I
The
know,
Kree wants to
it's-
broker a deal.
it's
and
just
it's
so
like-
damn sloppy and just
Yeah, we made a better show. We made a better show right now, and like we didn't get paid for it. I keep saying
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I just again, that's a great idea. Talos being the bad guy. It would hurt
It
me because I
is.
love him so much, but like
But
It
way
would've
more
made you-
interesting.
and because they're friends. It's like the Winter Soldier thing.
And
It's
you
like
could have an
they-
ending where he like chooses to kill himself. I know that's dark, but like there's this version where he like sees the error of his ways and he thinks the only way to do it is to like it's dark, but there's almost this version where that works in terms of like this complicated character who is caught in both worlds. He has been, Nick Fury's, right hand
Yeah.
man in some ways, but at the same time he's caught in trying to take care of his people. He makes some bad decisions, things get out of hand, and he has to pay the ultimate price.
Yeah,
That's
and
such a
nothing-
better version of his death. It's such a better version of their relationship. There's just
Well, another thing is you could have made Gaia an operative of Nick Fury, and she has been his
Yeah.
operative doing
Yeah.
things for 30 years, and then
she's his daughter, and she ends up betraying him to Nick Fury. Essentially,
she's like it's her two dads basically. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
you could have
Yep.
had two dads, and
Super
she's got to
interesting.
pick. Yeah, that's way better. Yeah,
yeah.
damn.
I'm
And then-
guessing,
And then you kill Talos at the end, and then she becomes the new Talos. You know what I'm saying? And
but
then
it's
you
like
have-
it's a much more like maybe she has to kill him. Maybe she has to kill her dad. That
Exactly.
would be a way
Yeah.
more interesting thing for her
Oh,
character
man.
to do.
oh, holy crap! Yeah, that's therapy 101. Like
Yeah, right? Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, you want to make your characters have the worst day of their lives. That's what you're wanting to do here.
yeah.
And I don't.
And I'm
know if Nick
guessing she's
Fury
just
has-
now in the universe as one of the most powerful people in the world. I guess.
I mean, I don't know how they haven't come out and said what X, Y, and Z, but if they said on verbatim, Thanos is the most powerful being in the universe, and then
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's Captain Marvel, it feels like she's OP to
Right.
Thanos but then you have Captain Marvel. What was weird too is when they like turn into Ebony Maw. I think it was Ebony Maw, who's the guy that's like he's Doctor Strange alien.
Oh,
When they like turn into him, I think they turn into it with like a ring. It's like have a ring and like it's
Oh,
like I kind
wow.
of thought I kind of feel like he was. Maybe I'm wrong. Like he was using a ring, kind of like Doctor Strange. Maybe he just had those powers. They were just like adjacent Doctor Strange powers, but like he could do it naturally. I don't know, but it's like
Yeah.
they turned into like that with like the ring, and I'm like, and then she's like, "Oh, you had the powers of Mantis," and she's like, "Oh, did she know? Does anyone on Earth know that Mantis has sleep?"
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
As
Guess
far as I know,
when she gets all the
Mantis was on
powers,
there
she just has
during the holiday special,
innate
and she was
knowledge.
there, during Endgame, I guess, but no one
Yeah.
saw that. And so,
Right. I mean, she
How
did.
would you know
Yeah.
she-
No, that was Avenger. That was the first event. That was Infinity War.
but
where she
that's what I'm
almost
saying.
gets-
She goes, and
gets
granted,
Thanos
I
sleep,
get
yeah.
it. Us as audiences know, oh, that's Mantis's powers. But that's
Yeah.
just stupid. It's stupid shit.
Also, some of it just looks so bad. Like there was one
Well,
moment where
Her having a giant muscle arm just doesn't look good.
but it was a giant muscle arm that was too small for her body almost. It looked like a
was
child's
weird.
giant muscle arm. It was
Like
just like
this.
this tiny little, like it looked like it was a child's, it was like the child version of that is what you use, not the adult version. And it
Yeah.
and she's a small person. So having a small arm on her is like, it's a baby arm. You know what I mean? And it's just,
Yeah.
some of it looked fine, them changing between the different
Sure.
powers, but
Hey,
it's
I
just-
like the idea.
It's just getting
Just not
more of
used
what we've
here.
already seen, just in a slightly different flavor. You know what I mean? It's just
Travis shared with
recycling.
us the free guy thing, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
at the time, you didn't really know having context for it. Now you do, and so it's
I mean,
like
it's exactly
that's
right.
just it's much more fun too. Though it gets all these different things, and
Right.
you know that it's because it's a
Right.
meta thing, and it's obviously
Yes.
it's funnier and it's Ryan Reynolds. But this show ultimately, Daniel, was just a big miss. And there was
Was.
glimpses in there, especially that first half, where it's like, oh, this show could have potential, and if they do
Yeah.
it right,
Yeah.
as they kept going, the Skrulls just had no
Yeah.
interesting direction. Nick Fury had no interesting direction. Talos gets killed off. Maria Hill gets killed off. Gaia
Yeah.
becomes the new whatever. And I guess Olivia Colman's character, she's also like the new Nick Fury, the way it's like, because like they were mirroring
least
Talos
the
and
British
Nick Fury
one.
there at the end. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
know.
again, there's a version where she could have been the new Nick Fury, and
Sure.
Gaia
his
could have been the new
blessing in some way or
Talos. Yeah, with
something.
his
Yeah,
blessing,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
could have went off with his wife, and like, I've done my time. There was one interesting thing that, like, I think it was the last episode or the second to last, where I was like, oh, that's a nugget of interesting stuff. It's like when I said it out loud. He goes, when I got dusted, I felt, and I said out loud, I went relief, and he went
Yeah,
relief,
yeah,
and I was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
that's interesting. And
That
I
was
knew
the
the answer.
conversation with Rhodey, I think. Like, right,
Yeah.
the one where he brings the maybe not. I remember that one. No, it's good. It's
maybe
a really
it was
good one.
maybe it's Gravik. I don't know, but it's
Or his
like
wife or
that.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, that right there. That's something you could have got into. Is like,
Yes.
he felt like like just this weight got lifted off his shoulders in his last moments of
Yeah.
his life, and
Yeah.
and like at the same time, he felt powerless but free.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now he's back in this world that's dangerous than ever because who's the enemies? Where are the Avengers? Where
Right.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, it's disappointing to say. In some ways, this may be the most disappointing Marvel.
I think
I mean,
it is.
it's in terms of the potential versus the product, right? Like, I look at things like Captain Marvel or She-Hulk, and those weren't my favorite, but I also wasn't like, oh, those have the potential to be the best thing we've seen in years from Marvel.
Yeah.
Right?
Captain Miss Marvel or Captain
Miss Marvel, sorry.
Okay,
Miss
yeah.
Marvel and She-Hulk and even things like, I mean, maybe Loki, I don't know. But like, it reminds me of Kenobi in terms of like the potential for this to have been amazing was almost limitless. Like, you could have, there's almost limitless potential to make this good and cool and awesome and satisfying and everything we ever wanted from like a true sequel to the prequels. And yet you gave us this just low effort dog shit. You know what I mean? And it's just, and I don't know where the low effort came. Maybe it was the executive producers at the top saying, you're not allowed to work on these things very long because blah, 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 or whatever. But at some point, it wasn't allowed to be as good as it could be by someone or some groups of people. And I think just in terms of like what it could be to what it is, there's such a big gap versus these other shows and these movies that I've been disappointed. I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder, I was very disappointed in. At the same time, I wasn't expecting that to be the best movie I'd seen in forever, or like the best that Marvel could give me in a while. Like, oh, this has potential to be the best Marvel since Endgame or something like that. I wasn't really going in with those expectations. For this, I was saying this could get Marvel back on track. This could be the thing that lights the fire in the zeitgeist again, that they do it right. Like, it could retroactively make all these things that weren't maybe as good better, all of these things. And it was just, it didn't even get close to trying to do. It didn't even try. It didn't even try to do those things. Yeah. And I think that's where it's just like this one feels worse than like being disappointed in the She-Hulk finale, right?
It does because again, we don't know how She-Hulk pans out in the universe in terms of like how it affects things with the ending. Right. And I was enjoying She-Hulk in a lot of ways, up until the ending. But this does things that make, it's like Kenobi. It hurt the universe more than helped it. And like, it made characters feel dumber, weaker. It made the universe feel dumber and weaker.
Yes.
And it also doesn't fit within the smaller, and it's what Kenobi did. And
in a globe-trotting espionage thriller, the world felt even smaller after it. That's just an indictment. Like, you had a genre you were aiming for, and you just fucking missed. You didn't even get close to the target. I
have a feeling, and they could just keep failing, but there's a version of this where, I mean, Bob Iger knows. He said it publicly.
Yeah.
Before the show even come out. Kevin knows too. And you know that they're sitting there and they're like fixing to completely pull back. And I bet there's conversations probably not to even release Echo, and
I mean, who knows? They may try to write it off as tax and just never release it. You never know. I mean,
it's a thing now, I guess.
It almost feels like Marvel needs a reset now, right? Like we know DC's about to get one, like basically new versions of every character in some way. It almost feels like Marvel needs that now. Like I almost just want to start over. Give me a new Cap,
I'm okay.
give me a new Iron Man. Like,
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because that's what Secret Wars is supposed to be for.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Right.
It was designed that way to be a reset. I don't know what that looks like,
right?
But I mean,
or if they're even going to do that with it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Going the multiverse route to me was always like, oh, we're gonna play for a little while until we get the reset.
Yeah.
Now, again, one of the biggest retcons they could do would be like, hey, turns out She-Hulk is not in the Prime universe, nor is this, and like, that would be like, that would make me feel better, even though it's like no one would know, the general audience, no one would know that, no one would care, they'd still consider it whatever, but I'd feel better about it. But the one of the other things we need to talk about before we get off for Daniel real quick is we know Everett Ross was captured, looks like early in the show, and he's a Skrull. And it seemed like he'd been there just for a few days or basically when the show starts. But we see that Colonel James Rhodes, he has been captured. And he's in the same gown that I believe that whenever he was shot down by the Falcon in Civil War. So
he's recovering in the hospital.
The implication is that, and they had to help him walk. So the implication is that after he went to the hospital in Civil War, he has been a Skrull ever since. He was a Skrull during Infinity War and in Endgame, and even in Falcon Winter Soldier when he's talking to him there. And it's like, so it's, a few things. Yeah. That's not Rhodey now when you watch those movies. Like that's a Skrull. And the thing, I'm not a huge fan of it because one, it just kind of makes like, at the very, he doesn't really do, like, he basically just takes Tom Holland's character and kind of pushes him aside whenever Tony dies, which kind of makes sense. Then he's not really getting super emotional and stuff. He's kind of pulling him away.
Yeah.
I think again, this is a retro. They didn't plan that when Endgame was made.
No,
but I don't think so. But we have an Armor Wars movie coming out, and so it's something they could play with. Like he hasn't even grieved over Tony Stark yet, and now Tony's stuff.
Theoretically, he doesn't even know he's dead.
He doesn't know yet. As far as when he's pulled out there, he doesn't know he's dead. He doesn't know people have been blipped.
He didn't know Thanos happened at all.
Didn't know Thanos happened, and so a big thing too is like, I guess did he get? We'll have to find out, but I guess that Skrull didn't get blipped. Like he.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because he was around in Endgame. He's one of the ones like helping patrol in the beginning and trying to take care of things and all this. He's patrolling. He's he's an Avenger. This Skrull become an Avenger for a while, and he's talking to Tony. I guess the Skrulls are like, if half of them went away, I guess that may have changed their plans for a little bit, or who knows? I mean, because you're right. In theory, that means they were planning since that far back to take over everything, right?
Yeah,
that was their plan. You would think,
which we don't. Yeah, we don't have the blip. They mentioned it for Nick Fury, like this was his thing, but like we don't. They still treat the blip, and I get it. I've heard reports like Kevin Feige's like, we're done with the blip. Like we talked, it's a big deal. Like when you have a character show up that we haven't seen since Endgame, they have to address the blip and how it's affected their life and their worldview and stuff.
Yes.
Once you do that with all your main characters, then you can move on to this is the status quo. I still think it's a mistake when you have like in Thor: Love and Thunder, like, oh, here's the Thanos Gauntlet ice cream store.
Oh, it's horrible. It's like if we defeated Nazi Germany and then we had like 100%. Hitler's ice cream shops afterwards. Yep. You know what I mean? It's just like
that's exactly what that is.
That would never happen ever.
Yeah. And that's the kind of, and that again, Daniel, and we said the exact same thing when we reviewed Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
And that are the kind of mistakes they keep making over and over again post Endgame.
And it's just like it's like you're making the lore worse for really cheap jokes. Yeah. Right? And just like cheap short, it just feels like everything became like it has felt like since Endgame everyone has like a no long-term vision anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like we're building anymore. It just feels like we're just trying to hit as many, key, laughs or whatever it is. And it's It's a trend now. You know, we've been getting this for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and so I think, you know, we've already heard rumors that, you know, or reports that they are consolidating future projects, right? Like Armor Wars is now a movie, right? Is that
Yep.
correct? And it was,
Yes.
it's a theatrical movie, right?
Yes,
Not a Disney
that's
Plus.
yeah.
So
That's
that's promising. That makes me more interested in Armor Wars just at a base level, personally.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about it, I think, when we were talking about this show halfway through, that like at this point, I don't really need or want any more Marvel Disney Plus shows. They've been more miss than hit. They've done more harm than good. And at the end of the day, I'd just rather you save it for movies. Just tell me 2 or 3 good theatrical stories a year in the Marvel universe, and that's all you just do that, right?
yeah. I mean,
Consolidate your resources, tell better stories, have better plans, and just stop giving us the cheap stuff, because it's hurting your brand and going to make it harder for you to find success in the future.
yeah, I think Disney Plus would be fine if they just like the movies. They have 3 movies a year, 2 movies a year. That means they're getting 2 or 3 big movies on a streaming platform a year. That's with theatrical.
Or if you're gonna do a Disney Plus show, do it like The Mandalorian. Give us a new character we haven't seen before, like in a different part of the universe that doesn't have to directly connect. Or
they have been doing that. It's called Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. I mean, that's what they've been trying to do.
Moon Knight, I'll give you, yes.
Werewolf by Night. I mean, which I think is great. Werewolf by Night is great.
That was fun.
Yeah,
as just a little standalone thing.
I mean, we're getting Ironheart next year. We're getting Echo in a couple.
We'll see about that
in November. You know, and we got so like that's what they were doing. But it's just they weren't doing it successful. So you don't even know they were doing it, Daniel.
True.
But I think they would be fine if they did not have. They could do the Marvel specials, like 1 or 2 a year, maybe over an hour a piece, and it introduce a character that way, but not the way they've been doing it.
If you make amazing movies people want to rewatch, that'll be enough to bring people to Disney. I mean, like when you release those on Disney Plus, like. That's the first place they're streaming. That'll bring. I mean, the other day I had a hankering just to like watch some old good Avengers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't, almost because I'm like, part of it is because my son's getting closer to an age where he might want to start watching them, and I don't want to have like just watch the whole thing and then start over with him necessarily. So I'm kind of waiting a little bit to see if I can do it with him. But yeah, I mean, like, I still want to watch those old films. Those movies. Or some of it's nostalgic value and like the time of life that it came out in and what it reminds me of, but some of it is just like they're just fucking good action movies and superhero movies. Like I still have an appetite for that. Like to me, superhero movies are just a genre at this point. They pick their own special genre that kind of play by their own rules in a lot of ways. But like, and yes, I am a little bit oversaturated with that. Like the past few experiences in the theater with Marvel haven't been just amazing. But at the same time, I still want to go watch the old ones, right? Like I still have an appetite for just good superhero films that feel good, that have good arcs, have good actors, have good action. And like, that's enough for me to keep Disney Plus around, just wanting to go watch those. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need brand new Marvel content every 3 weeks on Disney Plus.
Also, Disney is not just Marvel, it's Star Wars. It's Lucasfilm stuff. It's National Geographic, and it's Pixar, and then all the other Disney shit like Little Mermaid, Lion King. I think once you become a Disney Plus subscriber, more likely than not, you're probably going to be there for life, especially if your kids are watching.
Especially, I mean, Bluey. That's the only place you can watch Bluey, and Bluey's like the shit. I mean, I just don't think like it's like, if they just stop doing this, they're like people are going to start dropping Marvel again. No, and maybe some people will pick it back up again. You know what I mean? Like, I think people are going to be dropping Disney Plus because they've been doing this kind of stuff. Yeah, if they had just not made any of these shows, and I mean, granted, they've had some bangers, like in terms of just the zeitgeist, WandaVision and Loki, mainly WandaVision. Yeah, I mean, we were. I mean, every week was like it was just dive into everything. Oh man, yeah, and fun. Like it still didn't 100% pan out the way I wanted it to be. Right, but looking back on it, it's like that's the bad thing. It's like raising gas, $1 every year, or whatever. It's like
when they put it back down to $2, you're like, oh yeah, it's this is great. It's like, well, it was $1 2 years ago, and it's like WandaVision. It's like I was kind of critical of it then. I'm like, man, that was nice. It was nice being only that critical about it,
And I do kind of fault them or their press tours that they kind of
they
warped expectations on their that was their fault. If they hadn't said any of that shit, we might have been like, this is amazing. This was the best thing ever.
Hey, never forget we got Ralph Bonard. Don't forget that.
I haven't, and I'm still hoping that gets retconned. You know
Me
what
too.
I mean? Like that. That
feels like it now, the multiverse and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So it's
But honestly, I would rather get Ralph Bonard than got Secret Invasion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's going to be very interesting watching the moves that the MCU makes over the next 5-10 years, because it feels like they are either going to find a way to get back to some of their old ways, or they might just stop. Like, it's like if they keep putting out mediocre content that no one likes and gets panned at reviews and no one's watching, to some degree that becomes a business decision that, like, well, we're going to stop making this kind of content. You know what I mean? And so it feels like it's like their future is in their hands right now. The moves that they make over the next 2 to 3 years will probably dictate whether the MCU is popular within the zeitgeist in the next 10, right?
I am hyper curious about how the Marvels does financially.
I mean, they're starting to put out more and more for that, right? Like, that's coming out the end of this year?
It comes out relatively. I think October.
Okay,
it comes out
soon.
November. So it comes out November, the same time Echo does, actually. So, like,
interesting.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has done very well. It was received very well. I really liked it a lot.
A lot of people. I mean, a lot of the comments were like, "I'm not really into the MCU anymore, but I like this." That was a lot of the comments I saw. At least,
again, it feels separate. It feels like it's its own thing, because it was basically. It doesn't feel tied to anything in the universe.
Yeah.
So on the horizon, we have Deadpool 3, which, it's got Hugh Jackman back. So they got a slam dunk in a lot of ways there,
Yeah.
They got Captain America, Brave New World, which is, Harrison Ford, and you got Return of the Leader from Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And then we got Thunderbolts and Blade, those kind of things down the road. So, like,
Thunderbolts, I'm hopeful for. It sounds like an interesting movie with complex characters, at least at the very least.
I hope
hopefully.
so. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, so. Me too.
I just don't know yet, man. And there's just nothing, like, again, they're going to announce a Spider-Man movie sometime in the next year.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what that is, but here's the movie that you haven't watched yet, which is Across the Spider-Verse. And that's a good superhero movie.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah. I mean,
it's got it's got its own issues, but I mean, when you watch that, you're going to be like, oh man, like, this is so much better than everything else superhero this year. Like, it's night and day better.
Is it weird that at this point we might say that Sony is making better Marvel shows? At least,
no. Wait till Kraven the Hunter comes out. Wait till Kraven's this year.
I know. But on the basis of the Spider-Verse movies alone, there's an argument that they've at least they've had. Not. I mean, Spider-Verse is probably better than anything since Endgame, superhero wise. Maybe you could argue Far From Home or
No Way Home.
No Way Home is up there.
I think Into the Spider-Verse came out before Endgame. Like, it's been a while for this.
No, I was saying the second one though.
Oh yeah,
like the second Spider-Verse. Maybe there's probably an argument that that's better than anything the MCU's done since Endgame.
Oh yeah, maybe it is. It maybe is.
And No Way Home is the one that might fight for it. But like,
I love
outside
Shang-Chi.
of that.
Yeah, I love Shang-Chi just because a lot of different reasons.
It's a really fun movie. I liked it.
Yeah, man, I have to look at those other movies, but yeah, it might be the best thing that they've made, because Doctor Strange kind of fell flat at the end because they just didn't. They wasted that potential. Yep. It made almost $1 billion. It's been the closest. It's been the most, besides Spider-Man. It's been the most.
Yeah.
It made like $980 million.
Black Panther was okay, not bad, but not great.
It was okay. I think we're in the minority, maybe there. I mean, that movie also didn't do things I wanted it to do, and I forgot it existed. And
honestly. So it's a weird thing to think, wow, Sony may have made the best Marvel movie in the last
3-4 years.
Game 2020 or 2019.
Yeah, and they did make No Way Home. I would still attribute that its successes to Marvel Studios.
Oh, but, yeah. I mean, I don't give Sony credit for any of those things. I mean, maybe we should give them more, but like, It seems like the only thing they do is allow it to happen.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. I don't 100% know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see what's on the horizon. I know
Yep.
Into the Spider-Verse or Across Spider-Verse Jump is dropping relatively soon. And we can talk about that probably before Echo hits, the Marvels, those kind of things. So it's probably the next Marvel property. We have Ahsoka coming up relatively soon around the corner.
That I'm
excited for. And that needs, yeah, me too. And that I feel like I'm at the right level of hype for that. I'm kind of like, well, I'm not just like throwing out the mouth for it because like Mando season 3 kind of burned me a little bit, but I'm like, you know, and Filoni I trust, and this is Filoni's baby. So I'm like, and also
this will be, you know, I think he's obviously had his hand in a lot of things up to this point. This will be kind of the true test for me is like, can Filoni do it? Can Filoni kind of step into the George Lucas, Kevin Feige shoes and be that for Star Wars? Because this will be the one he had, you know, no help with, essentially. At least he's the showrunner, correct?
That's what it feels like, yeah.
And at least writing them all or writing a lot of them. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm excited for it. My expectations, I'm keeping them in check because I remember one of the last few things that came from Marvel or from Star Wars is Mando season 3 and Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like not great showings. And so like there is this being like, oh, I'm excited, but at the same time, I could be disappointed by this, but I'm hopeful. I mean, like them. I mean, as far as the storylines, like kind of going down that heir to the Empire storyline. That's promising. That's some really good stuff to adapt, right? Like you've got some great stuff that you got stuff that maybe should have been the sequel trilogy to adapt into a TV show. And
there's no maybes involved. Daniel.
Yeah, right. And so the potential's there, and I'm hopeful. And but I do have my expectations in check. I'm not letting them kind of run wild with this, like I did for Kenobi.
Yeah. Well, I think Deadpool 3 is the next big Marvel thing for me. It feels like, for obvious reasons. Just
I mean, who knows? I mean, that's been halted filming right now, so who knows when that'll be done?
Yep. I suspect all these things will be pushed back. Unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe they'll rush it out to meet the May deadline. I mean,
all the sound bites about the strikes recently are like, we're ready to go to 2024. You know what I mean? So I mean, we could eventually have like a 6-month gap in content from like everyone.
Yeah, which I feel like it trickles farther than that. So it's like 6 months for the strike becomes like 12 months in entertainment. You know, I don't know that, but I feel like that's how it kind of typically works. Or maybe 1.5 times longer. So it could be like,
and maybe it won't. I mean, I was reading, I guess like the last time the writer strike, the why it ended was because these smaller studios started making the deals. And then the other big ones had, like, apparently the 2008 writer strike started to end because Marvel started, before they were Disney Marvel, we're like, okay, we will agree to your terms so you can write for us. So like it was like a trickle effect of like, well,
can they do that? They can agree.
Because they're separate studios. I guess they're like separate studios. They can make their own deals. And so like that's what happened last time was like a couple smaller ones like, we will do it for you. Let's sign the thing. And then at that point, the big guys didn't have really a choice, right? And so
I could see, yeah. I mean, you got Hugh Jackman waiting in the wings. You know, he's been bulking up and getting it back in shape again. And like, he's not going to sit there for 3 to 6 months.
Stay in perfect shape for 6 months. That's your goal now or something. Yeah, no, right. Or
you know,
many things can change. I mean, like in 6 months in terms of like locations, in terms of, you know, all of these things. I mean, hopefully we're not getting movies where it feels like very clearly these early shots were 6 months filmed before.
I'm afraid. I mean, there was a clear time period of like, okay, this was the 2008 writer strike movie, and I fear very much so that we're going to get that in a lot of ways. Because we're getting hit twice. We're getting hit with the writers and the actors.
I know, right? Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a
and the actors. It almost feels like the writer strike could get done before the actors. Maybe not, but like the way the kind of the verbiage that is going on between the actors and the studios feels much more harsh right now. Like the actors seemed like very mad and kind of like I think I read the other day that like it was the, I guess the A&T, whatever the group is they were negotiating with, they walked away like because they were mad that the strikers threatened to strike, right? And like the actors still were like, let's negotiate one more time, and they wouldn't. And so the actors now are saying, we're not going to call you, you're going to call us. If you want us, you like, we're not going to make any more efforts. And so it's this very like, it feels like both groups are kind of stuck up in their feels a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's becoming personal and not like,
it makes sense too.
business.
I mean, writers are typically individuals who are secluded from one another, and they're like in their hole, and they're not, I would say they're less social than actors are, and actors are going to be passionate about something.
Yeah.
And they're
exactly.
also, and they're coming off the notion that the writers are on strike, and they've been, and some of them have been striking with them in solidarity. So it's like they're amped up, probably.
And you've got these Academy Award winning actors giving rousing speeches. Like you got into a communications war with the worst group to do this with. A bunch of CEOs and their press releases are going to compete with Bryan Cranston up there putting his heart into a speech. No.
The writers needed to write the speeches.
I know, exactly.
Write the speeches for the actors.
Right.
As their characters.
Like, you guys got into a war you will not win in terms of public opinion. No one. I don't see any part of the internet. I mean, unless there's always like one idiot troll in the comments that's like, why are these actors whining it? But like, no one. I can't see any part of the world feeling like, yeah, the actors really need to cede to the demands of these CEOs. The world is mostly against the idea of CEOs anyway, and like how much money they make. They're fighting a losing battle.
Well, there's even also aspects you got to think of the state of California, and also New York and these other places, in Atlanta and Savannah, all these places, because those industries are huge for the states in terms of revenue and jobs,
tourism,
and
everything.
And when California doesn't make movies anymore, that's Hollywood, baby. And there's been times, I think, in previous strikes where like the governor of whatever has been like, hey, fucking go meet and fix this, because you're ruining our state right now. Yeah, that's happened in previous strikes. So it goes beyond just that. It goes political. It goes economics. I mean, it's a huge deal.
It is this thing where the actors maybe are smart about doing this. This has become bigger than the actors versus the CEOs and the producers. It's become the common man, the common worker against the CEO. Like they've that's been their messaging, is like, it's not just about us, it's everything. And I think they're smart in that, because they're gaining more support and more people are feeling like they're a part of it versus
it's also, this is the first strike that's been like in a very volatile social media landscape.
Yeah.
So this is like,
at the same time, the economy's not doing great. Like this is
new ground.
It's an interesting time, and like, it will be interesting to see what the repercussions of this are. Maybe we see a less centralized Hollywood. Maybe Hollywood starts getting more spread out. It's not all in Los Angeles anymore. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of ways this could all go.
And other things,
yeah, but I'm saying like even to a further degree. I mean, like we have over the last 40 years. Yeah, it was just LA and New York, and now we've got Atlanta. Now we got New Orleans. Now we've got Toronto's huge. Like all these places that are as almost have industries that can at least like rival somewhat the industries in LA and New York in terms of just the amount of jobs and money and stuff like that. It's
a lot. And the moral of the story is that this needs to be fixed so we have better shows than Secret Invasion down the pipeline. That's the moral of this story. And also needs to be fixed because there's people's lives and families involved in this. But on the entertainment side, we want more content, and we want them to get paid for making good content.
Absolutely.
How can our listeners write into us, Daniel?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you thought of Secret Invasion. If you loved it, we don't want to hear it. Okay. But if you agree with us, please write in bit.ly/241mail. I'm kidding. If you loved it, if you think that there are parts of this show that deserve praise or something, write in. We will make fun of you privately, and that'll be a fun time for us. So bit.ly/241mail. Let us know.
And if you can't hit us up at our Bitly, which I really hope you can, you can always find us in the comment section below. youtube.com/241studios, the best place to consume the content. Daniel, it's 170 episodes. So I feel like that's quite a bit. feel like it's a bit, and we've slowed down a little bit in the last month or so. Just the
Yeah,
nature of
and
the
who knows?
universe.
This Hollywood strike may be slowing us down even more in a few months.
We'll figure it out.
It will be
We'll
an
figure it
interest. We're gonna have to start. Maybe we'll just do a bunch of retrospectives. Just start
Yeah.
watching old shit and old
Yeah.
TV shows. My wife and I are working our way through Star Trek TNG right now because she's never watched it, and she's never really watched any Star Trek besides like the J.J. Abrams movies. So this is like I am guiding her into Star
Yeah.
Trek right
Oh,
now,
yeah.
which is fun.
You're a Star Trek
Um,
doula, man. That's what you are right now.
That's right. That's right.
Star Trek doula, baby.
Star Trek.
All right, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Not quite sure what we'll
Absolutely.
talk about, but we'll be here talking about something probably. My name is Donovan Thompson,
I am Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.